you straight over to Bonnie, who's going to have a chat with you, and then we'll do a little Q&A and open it out to yourselves if you have any questions as well. So Bonnie Greer, please welcome to the stage.
A night, oh, what a night. That's a bad bitch. All jokes aside, that shit.
Sam on Ryan, you're toxic, I'm slipping.
All she wanna do is party all night. Goddamn, Roxanne. Never gonna love me, but it's all
That was Charlie D'Amelio. If you have kids, or you know kids, or involved with them, especially people who are about 12, 13, 14, 15, you know that Charlie is one of the most famous people on this planet. You have to be kind of beautiful, and you have to be a little weird to be a star on TikTok. And this is what TikTok is. TikTok is an app. It was developed in China, and it's now in the USA. It specializes in short music and lip sync videos of 3 to 15 seconds and short looping videos of 3 to 60 seconds. And the problem with TikTok, it's suppressing videos from people with disabilities. It doesn't allow LGBTQ videos. That's all right now. Charlie is a big star, and she stays in a house when she's not at school called Hype House, and it's in Hollywood. And because it's in Hollywood, it's like a huge dorm, and there is a pool outside. But the big thing about Hype House, which you would have noticed here, is that they've got this huge bathroom. It's huge. And in the bathroom, there's a mirror, huge mirror. And what you're supposed to do in Hype House is you're supposed to create content. That's your whole job in Hype House. If you looked at Charlie, you noticed that she looked like she was looking in a mirror, and she was playing back into a mirror. So our Generation Z people are partly, and Generation X, are partly about self-reflection, much more so than their older brothers and sisters, the millennials. They are interested in content that's fed back to them through themselves. Generation Z is also about what I call the narcissist tendency. They're not narcissistic, they are into narcissists. So there is this whole concept of no filter writ large. They don't move or do anything without feedback from the mirror. So I'm here to talk about diversity, and not ethnic, gender, sexuality, neural, generational, economic diversity. I'm talking about diversity of intelligence. Intelligence is relative. For instance, a Nobel Prize winning physicist, if you give him or her, well, I'm gonna say him, if you give him a knife and a loincloth and put him in the middle of the Amazon forest, and then there's an indigenous mom who walks up to him with her 4 kids, guess who's the genius in this situation? So we have Charlie, who's standing in the mirror, and we have to open the doors to people who have other kinds of intelligences, not just the stuff that scores on what we understand, not just the people who understand how to use the key or the metaphorical executive lift. We're moving into a world in which people are starting to look at themselves to get answers. They're using themselves as a measure of things. They're using their own idea of intelligence as the measure. And we have to understand how to talk to this generation. We have to understand how to relate to this generation. We have to understand how to intervene with this generation. Now, I was going to be really frank with you. This is a white, privileged girl who thinks and who knows, actually, that it's okay to mimic a a inner city African American guy talking about a woman's body, and nobody's going, "Oh, what do you do?" You know, so this is fascinating, and this is kind of what's coming. And I always say, and I've said this for a long time, one of the reasons I was able to stay in the United Kingdom and get my papers was that I developed a system in America, in New York, the Lower East Side, in which I taught Shakespeare to inner city youngsters. And the thing that I did was I never told them they were doing Shakespeare, because the minute you stand up and say, now we're going to study Shakespeare, they're gone. It's like dust. So I never told them, and they never knew that they were doing Shakespeare until the end. So that sort of gap between me not telling them what this thing was and what they were able to do is what we've got to now journey in between, because there are intelligences out there that if we don't know and understand how to engage them, we won't be able to move forward in the world that's coming. We just won't be able to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I love about it, it's that it's thought-provoking, and it provoked me to think about it when I was watching the video first, because I literally I thought you had sent me the wrong link.
I know you
really
did. I got this like this was like radio science. I thought like Bonnie made a mistake. No.
It was only afterwards when I read it again, I went, oh my God, no, that is the correct link. No, it's fascinating. I mean, I love that idea of diversity of intelligence. I mean, I'm also, I have to confess, absolutely glued at the moment to your podcast. You've done, and I'm moving away slightly from that subject, but has anybody listened to it? Bonnie has a podcast on Black history at the moment. My God, I am learning so much.
Well, my next is going to be on Ireland, I'm telling you. I'm doing Ireland next. But this was, and thank you for that. This is Audible UK, and it's called In Search of Black History, and it literally is, because with most education, and working with the British Museum as well, most of us are educated by people who are eminent in their field, but they've taken their education from somewhere else. So, for instance, if you're at Oxford, you probably learn from a teacher who was taught by, say, Bertrand Russell, who was taught by, say, someone back there. So you're learning your education, you're being tested on something that's actually old. You know, if you can't sit an exam and understand what your teacher's taught you based on what he's learned, based on what he's learned, based on what he's learned, you can't get your degree. So you can't interject anything new literally inside of what you're thinking, because they won't recognize what you're saying. So if you come in and you say, well, actually, Lloyd's of London was founded because they insured slave ships. And the category that they invented was called insurrection of cargo. That was a slave revolt called on a slave ship. Most of the people who did those revolts were women. And the reason we don't know that they're women is because there was a gender bias in the history accounting. So men would see this and think, no, that's not possible. Women were not fighting on slave ships, so we'll just X them out. We'll hang all of them, but we won't say their names. So there's a whole swath of history that we don't know about in relation to African and African American, African British, and Irish history, because these women are gone.
And history is written by the winners.
They're written by people who succeeded.
Yeah.
So I'm the parent of 3 children, 2 of whom are boys, 15 and 12, and one of whom spends a lot of time on TikTok. But it's not designed by children, it's used by children, and they are children, and their brains are still forming, and they're not formed until their 20s.
That's right.
So should we just accept this? You can't close Pandora's box. Or what kind of support can we give to kids for this new world where, you could say they're wasting a lot of time, particularly during the Christmas holidays on these platforms. They should do something more interesting, I think, like get out and meet their friends or go for a walk.
But they are meeting their friends.
And I've nothing against only meeting them virtually, but they're...
Well, we call them virtual. See, this is the kind of thing I think, and I'm not a mother, so I'm not on the day-to-day with kids, so I'm listening to your wisdom. But my reaction is they aren't virtual. So this is the kind of thing that we have to understand. We do know how intelligence is formed. We do know how intelligence comes into being. This is a kind of intelligence. And so we have to understand the same kind of intelligence we have as babies. We have exactly the same thing. This algorithm has captured it and is now making it visible for us and is bringing it back to young adolescents who are going to grow up and proceed through the world in this very way. So we must understand exactly what's happening and what we can do. If you're a parent and you feel you need to make an intervention, how you do it. And if you don't want to make an intervention, how do we make the kinds of things, I don't want to use the word products, but the sort of things that we can make as we go forward in this 21st century, which is going to largely, I think, is going to be about devices and interacting with devices, and these things are going to be embedded in the body as well. So I've written a novel called Entropy, and it's really about this part of the 21st century where we'll be able to say, walk past a certain wall, you'll be able to hold your hand up, and you'll get a readout on all the things that you need to know that'll be in your own language, your own code. That's what their minds are being prepared to do. So these mobile phones that we're walking around with, that's going to be in their body. So we have to start to understand the kinds of minds that are being formed now. And maybe it might be interesting, again, I'm not a parent, so I don't know how much time is being wasted or whatever, but it might be interesting to sort of watch them as they're watching and seeing what they're doing. Also, what are they doing with their mouths? Because Charlie is confident enough to do her. We all did as we were growing up. We all stood in front of a bathroom mirror, made faces, we lip synced, we did air guitar, we did all this kind of stuff. I mean, you know, I'm like Eric Clapton, you know, but we didn't go and like walk down the street and do that. We didn't do that in a thing called Hype House. We didn't do that making sort of content for people to look at. That's fascinating to me.
I have one last question because I'm very conscious that
Yes.
unfortunately people have to get back to work and
Yes,
things
yes,
like that.
yes.
And also we want to get them into the expo as
Exactly.
well before they go. But I do have to ask you, what was your reaction to when you said that about Ireland on Question Time and you suddenly became viral online? And were you kind of taken aback?
I don't even know what made me say it. I don't know what the environment was in the room that made me say it. All I know, and as the next day, I was in Liverpool. We were in Liverpool. And I was in Liverpool Street Station. I was having my ristretto, my Italian coffee. And I suddenly realized that there were 4 people standing in the mirror, in the glass looking at me. And the first thing I thought was, oh my God, what are they gonna do? You know, I'm from Chicago, so we're always thinking of gang activity, right? So I'm thinking, oh my God, you know. So I went out on the platform and they asked, can I take a selfie with you? I thought, oh, what? And so I found out that that what I said meant something. So I have to say to all of you, I'm just overwhelmed. I talk a lot, but when I talk about Ireland, I can't talk enough, and I can't express how I feel. And thank you all so much for your hospitality and your affection, and I just feel like I'm in a new home. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening to me.